This is the introduction to the book by William Gurnall, a treatise of the whole armor of God. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 10 reads, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might." Paul was now in bonds, yet not so close kept as to be denied pen and paper. God, it seems, gave him some favor in the sight of his enemies. Paul was Nero's prisoner, but Nero was much more God's. And while God had work for Paul, he found him friends both in court and prison. Let persecutors send the saints to prison. God can provide a keeper for their turn. But how doth this great apostle spend his time in prison? Not in publishing invectives against those, though the worst of men, who had laid him in, a piece of zeal which the holy sufferers of those times were little acquainted with, nor in politic counsels, how he might wind himself out of his trouble, by sordid flattery of, or sinful compliance with, the great ones of the times. Some would have used any picklock to have opened a passage to their liberty, and not scrupled, so escape they might, whether they got out at the door or window. But this holy man was not so fond of liberty or life as to purchase them at the least hazard to the gospel. He knew too much of another world to bid so high for the enjoying of this. And therefore he is fearless what his enemies can do with him, well knowing he was sure of going to heaven whether they would or not. No, the great care which lay upon him was for the churches of Christ. As a faithful steward, he labors to set this house of God in order before his departure. We read of no dispatches sent to court to procure his liberty, but many to the churches to help them to stand fast in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made them free. There is no way to be even with the devil and his instruments. For all their spite against us is by doing what good we can, wherever we are. The devil had as good have let Paul alone, for he no sooner comes into prison, but he falls a preaching, at which the gates of Satan's prison fly open, and poor sinners come forth. Happy for Onesimus that Paul was sent to jail. God had an errand for Paul to do to him and others, which the devil never dreamed of. Nay, he doth not only preach in prison, but that he may do the devil all the mischief he can, he sends his epistles to the churches, that tasting his spirit in his afflictions and reading his faith, are now ready to be offered up, that they might much more be confirmed. Amongst which Ephesus was not least in his thoughts, as you may perceive by his abode with them 2 years together. Acts chapter 19, verse 10. As also by his sending for the elders of this church as far as Miletus, in his last journey to Jerusalem. Acts chapter 20, verse 17. To take his farewell of them, as never to see their face in this world more. And surely the sad impression which that heart-breaking departure left upon the spirits of these elders, yea, the whole church by them, acquainted with this mournful news, might stir Paul up, now in prison, to write unto this church, that having so much of his spirit, yea, of the spirit of the gospel, left in their hands to converse with, they might more patiently take the news of his death. In the former part of this epistle, he soars high in the mysteries of faith, In the latter, according to his usual method, he descends to application, where we find him contracting all those truths as beams together in a powerful exhortation, the more to enkindle their hearts and powerfully persuade them to walk worthy of their vocation. Chapter 4, verse 1, which then is done when the Christian's life is so far transparent that the grace of the gospel shines forth in the power of holiness on every side, and from all his relations as a candle in the crystal glass, not in a dark lantern, lightsome one way and dark another, and therefore he runs over the several relations of husband, wife, parents, children, masters, and servants, and presseth the same in all these. Now, having set every one in his proper place about his particular duty, as a wise general hath he arranged his army and drawn them forth into rank and file, he makes this following speech at the head of the Ephesian camp, all in martial phrase, as best suiting the Christian's calling, which is a continued warfare with the world and the prince of this world. The speech itself contains two parts. First, a short but sweet, powerful encouragement, verse 10. Secondly, the other part is spent in several directions, for they're managing this war the more successfully, with some motives here and there sprinkled among them. To begin with the first. First, the word of encouragement to battle. With this he begins his speech. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord. The best way indeed to prepare them for the following directions. A soul deeply possessed with fear and dispirited with strong impressions of danger is in no posture for counsel. As we see in an army when put to flight by some sudden alarm or apprehension of danger, it is hard rallying them into order till the fright occasioned thereby is over. Therefore the apostle first raiseth up their spirits, be strong in the Lord, as if he should say, perhaps some drooping souls find their hearts fail them, while they see their enemies so strong, and they so weak, so numerous, and they so few, so well appointed, and they so naked and unarmed, so skillful and expert at arms, but they green and raw soldiers. Let not these or any other thoughts dismay you, but with undaunted courage march on, and be strong in the Lord, on whose performance lies the stress of the battle, and not on your skill or strength. It is not the least of a minister's care and skill in dividing the word. So to press the Christian's duty is not to oppress his spirit with the weight of it, by laying it on the creature's own shoulders, and not on the Lord's strength, as here our apostle teacheth us. In this verse, first, here is a familiar appellation, my brethren. Secondly, here is the exhortation, be strong. Thirdly, here is a cautionary direction annexed to the exhortation, in the Lord. Fourthly, here is an encouraging amplification of the direction, and in the power of his might, or in his mighty power.